Happy Monday, everyone. I hope everyone had an amazing Thanksgiving. My big question to you, go ahead and put this in the comments. Did you do most of the cooking or most of the eating? I myself did a lot of cooking and a lot of resting. So I'm really looking forward to being with you guys all again on another Monday here on the Janelle Villiers podcast. I am Janelle Villiers, your host, and this podcast is all about essentially authorship and people who are sharing their stories. I give a lot of tips and tricks on how to write your book, how to publish your book, marketing, things like that. But I also bring on other authors who have written their book, who have gone through the journey and who can talk about what their book's about and also how they wrote their books and their process. And sometimes I even bring on guests who haven't written their book just yet, but their story is worth amplifying and worth spreading what they've learned and the lessons that they want to share. So I'm really excited because today is one of those days where I have a guest. And today we're going to be talking about how to end burnout and build a purpose-driven life, the tilting the balance system. I'm really excited about this. Obviously, I didn't create the system, but I am really excited to talk to somebody who can really give us insight on burnout, on how we can prevent it and or stop it. And then I think we all want that, right? We all want a purpose-driven life. And I can't think of a better person to bring on to help us with this. He is the co-author of a new book that just came out, Tilting the Balance. And he really is like a light. One of the things that I love about him is he's got an amazingly positive personality. For someone who has learned so much through his life so far, he is deeply, deeply passionate about sharing how he was able to overcome the challenges that he's had and helping as many people as possible do the same thing. So everyone, please welcome to the stage. Give a big round of applause wherever you are at home, watching on your phones. Everybody, please welcome Justin Bullock.
Tilting the balance. The fundamental approach to our system is all about 30-day challenges and how 30-day approaches can take something that seems like a mountain that is just, how do I get there? It makes it into, hey, I just got to go right there. I can see the next phase of things.
Yeah. There he is.
Howdy.
The man himself. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for those very kind words. I appreciate that. And I love that video that you put together too. That was awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just want to shout out anyone who's watching live in real time. Please say hello in the comments as we're chatting. If you have questions, please put them in the comments as well, because I can put them up on the screen so Justin can see them and he can answer your questions in real time. So I'm really excited to get into it. So for those who are just meeting you for the first time, but they are feeling overwhelmed by life or having maybe some self-help burnout, what is the core problem that Tilting the Balance was created to solve?
So great question. And what we aim to solve is content overload. There's so much information in the world, and there's so much information, not just externally, but what's happening with our own internal approaches, with all of the areas of life that we have and the things that are on our plates, the objectives that we want to accomplish, the desires that we want, the managing the things that maybe we don't want to manage or have to or want to. There's so many aspects of our lives. And what it begins with is a system for compartmentalization. That's where it begins, is having all of the chaos organized into little silos that you are able to look at and say, okay, this area of my life is calling for the most attention versus this area of my life is lacking fulfillment, and I need to put my time and my attention over here. And I think that's the foundation of our system, is a system for being able to compartmentalize. And then the end of it is the execution framework, like what was on that snippet of the video of taking the biggest mountain, taking it into smaller summits and more bite-sized chunks. But it really does boil down to the beginning of it all, which is having a way of looking at your approach so that it's easy to digest and to dissect, so that you're always focused on what's the most important at any given time.
Well, I love that you said that, right? So trying to compartmentalize and figure out what is the most, or like prioritizing. And so you talk about the 10 categories of life. So could you break down what those are and why do they matter?
So later, as we came up with this system, we came across something called the Wheel of Life, which was already a developed system. Our 10 categories are very similar to the 10 categories on the Wheel of Life there. Or maybe, I don't recall if there's 10 or 12 or 8, how many are on the wheel. But essentially, there's so many different aspects and dynamics to our existence. And it goes from the way that you see yourself and the world around you, yourself, your core values, your belief systems. That's one of our 10 categories. And then you move externally. So you're taking care of your personal affairs, taking care of your relationships with your friends, family, loved ones, your charitable contributions to the world, managing your financial responsibilities, having business and career objectives, having spiritual aspirations and outlooks and goals. So there's all of these different life areas. And that was what we aimed to do, was to make it to where you can easily, again, look at what is important and be able to take an approach toward meaning and fulfillment in each of these life areas, contingent upon how important they are to you specifically, because everybody has different values in life, and some people may not care much about spirituality versus others. It's a way of their life, a way of their being. Maybe it's even part of their business and their career objectives. So that's part of it, is having a very solid understanding of what it is that you want most for you as the individual.
And do you find that like compartmentalizing each one of those different areas helps people prioritize better?
Absolutely. So that's the next step in our system. So what you do first is you put everything on paper that you could ever dream of, from desires of, hey, I want to go out and buy a new coffee mug, to I want to invent a coffee mug or my own brand of coffee, or buy a coffee franchise, or create a coffee farm.
Right.
You run through everything, and then put it into these categories. That's the next step, is putting a prioritization level on it. That way you can dissect all of the chaos and laser focus on what it is that is going to be the most impactful across the board, with logic, reasoning, and emotional resonance behind it as you've gone through this workbook. So I think your question though was is that an effective approach? I believe. Very much. Yeah, very much so. And I think that where I realized there was a tremendous amount of magic to this system. A couple of years ago, I felt very off. Something just in a present moment. It wasn't like this lingering thing. It was just something in the moment. I didn't feel quite right. So we have an assessment in our book. It's rating your life balance. And I went through that assessment, and I realized that my hobbies and interest score was rather low. And I started thinking about it. And one of my favorite things to do is to go canoeing and kayaking and being out. I live here in Florida. We have some amazing springs. And that's what it was. I went from sitting in my living room on my computer to realizing that what I really was longing for internally was a day on the water. And that was how I realized how powerful that compartmentalization system is, because I was able to recognize an emotion that I don't think I there otherwise would have understood.
That's really powerful, especially thank you for sharing your own story around that, because I think a lot of people can relate to that. Sometimes you just don't know, right? Like you're trying to navigate, maybe something's missing, something doesn't really feel right, and you're not really sure what that could be. But I love that you've created the framework where you can be like, okay, these are the different parts of your life. And so then it becomes more clear. not only what to prioritize, but like maybe something that like you didn't even know was on your radar that you need to actually now put on the radar to actually address. So I love that actually.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so then moving forward through this, and I know you and I behind stage and in previous conversations, we've talked a lot about this, but the next stage of this, I feel like, is this 3-4-30 challenge. So I think it's brilliant in its simplicity. And I'm really curious, actually, I don't think we talked about this, but where did it come from?
That was the core premise of this entire book. So to answer this question, Nick and I, we met in 2013, the tail end of 2013. He was the first friend that I made when I moved here to Jacksonville, Florida. And I met him at a networking event, and he ended up saying, "Hey, I know you just moved here. I'd love to take you to dinner." So we became instant friends, and we started reading a tremendous amount of books. In 2015, I got very heavily involved in reading personal development and business books. And I went from reading 0 books a year to reading dozens of books a year. And in that process, we were cross-referring these books back and forth to each other. And he would read a book, I'd read a book, we would share our insights, and then we would call each other and complain or hang out and complain about our circumstances and read another book and keep trying to fix it. Nothing was happening for us, amidst reading some of the most powerful personal and business development books that are out there. And the day after Christmas 2019, I was sitting in my mom's driveway. I was about to drive down to Central Florida to see my grandparents for Christmas holidays, and I had all the hair on my body stood up. It was one of the most powerful feelings I've ever experienced in my life. And Nick shared with me later that he was home and was not having the best Christmas. So he answered the phone. He was alone, but I called him and said, and thankfully he answered, because who knows where this would have progressed to had we not had this conversation, this present moment. But I called him and said, "Hey, what if we hold each other accountable for 30 days and write a book about our experience?" And that was how it began. And that, as we refined the system, what it is, it's you pick up the 3 primary goals. You meet with an accountability partner at least 4 times, once a week in that 30-day period, or you can meet with them 4 times in a week, or even more if you want to, 4 times a day, doesn't matter. As long as you're meeting with that accountability partner and perpetuating your momentum forward. And him and I have transformed our lives exponentially from these 30-day challenges. Where we started together, we've had other people that we've incorporated in these challenges. We've done them together, we've done them independently. But the changes that we've made in our lives have been exponential. And that's why we believe in our system and what we've created, because it took us 6 years of developing, refining, and implementing our content and our system to prove that it's efficacious, not just to us, but to other people. And we didn't want to put something out there that was disingenuous or lacked integrity. We wanted to ensure that it works. And that is the execution framework, is 30-day challenges, having accountability partners. Real quick, I'll share, I've had a lifelong affliction with food. I was a short little fat kid growing up, and I used to wash cars in the summer. I'd wash cars so I could have money to order Papa John's pizza. I mean, that was how I lived my summers. And it's been a lifelong battle of, I've had tremendous amount of fitness challenges where I've lost a lot of weight. I've gained all that weight back. I've yo-yoed for years and years. And with my approach to weight loss and health, some of that before was ego, vanity driven. Now it's about longevity. There's a lot of things that have changed from a mindset perspective. But now every day I'm posting, I have an accountability group for Tilting the Balance, and on my own personal Facebook, every day I'm posting my goals and I'm posting a grade. So it's A through F. And like I got an F on Thanksgiving, and I was not very thrilled about that. And it's been helping every day the decisions that I make with, if I'm in real time, if I decide to eat something that I know I shouldn't be eating, I have to think about the consequence of that A through F grade that's publicly facing for everybody that knows me or comes across our framework. So it's about living by example, having that accountability. But obviously, living by example and being the spearhead of this initiative, that doesn't mean that same logic doesn't apply for those who, in your own personal life or your professional life, you can put yourself out there on blast in front of people. I think it's the vulnerability, the openness, the transparency that each one of us must adopt. Accountability. It's an ownership mindset that will take us to the next level. And that's a principle that rings true in all facets of life. I believe that's what our book teaches as well. It's about ultimate ownership. That's how you make it happen. You got to accept it, and you got to take responsibility for it, and you got to do something about it.
So I love the accountability aspect of it, and I'm curious. I mean, you're talking about a current, I guess, like, item, right? Like it's on your priority list, right? Like health, right? Fitness, right? And so that's something that you're addressing right now. I'm curious to know how you've used the 30-day challenge to help with other things, and if you can talk about what it was like before, and then what the result was after using the 30-day challenge.
Yeah. So at that time, from 2015 through 2019, Nick was abusing alcohol, and I was abusing marijuana. So that was a big challenge with our approaches. And fast forward, we are no longer plagued by those afflictions. Those are no longer things that are challenges in our lives.
In 30 days.
Through multiple 30-day challenges. I ended
Okay.
up doing a year of sobriety in 2022, and that was pivotal. That changed my relationship with marijuana. That changed my relationship with myself. I was forced to go through a lot of insecurities that I was sheltering, and it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. It was very, very challenging. And I didn't just start out with 30-day challenges refraining altogether. I actually started out with challenges where I wasn't allowed to partake until after 4:20 p.m. There might be some people that appreciate that one. Then I wasn't allowed to do it until the weekends. And then as I perpetually built momentum, I got to the point where I just, instead of, it wasn't a year of sobriety, it was 12 consecutive 30-day challenges, probably closer to 13 because I went a little over a year. But going backwards, after I smoked again for the first time, it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same symbolism for what it meant for me. Now it's something that is just not a priority. I used to prioritize my schedule around when can I smoke, when can I have a meeting, right after that meeting I can. Now I could care less. And a lot of that was from the 30-day challenges. The food challenges, nicotine. I stopped using nicotine using 30-day challenges. So there's just a tremendous, I think you can change a lot of habits using 30-day challenges perpetually over the course of time. And then even just small things like I want to reorganize my home. Well, I'll do a 30-day challenge and make sure I get it done this month. If it's something that can't just be done in a full day. So you can break it down from something internal to, again, external approaches, but the efficacy behind taking the biggest picture and condensing it into bite-sized steps, it's an implementation framework that is ultra effective.
I love that. And I just want to remind everybody that you're watching, if you have any questions for Justin, please put them in the comments. If you're finding value from what he's sharing, please also put a V in the comments for value. We love to see that as well. And so while people are working on their questions that they want to ask, I'm curious about the writing of this. You've mentioned this now a few times that you co-authored this book. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious. Sorry, so the co-author is Nicholas Haupt. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yep.
Okay. And I'm curious to know what that partnership was like as you were writing this book together.
So it was a roller coaster of us learning to be more effective communicators and us doing the internal work that we needed to do independently, but then coming together. So we had a lot of headbutting at certain intervals. In the early stages, So this was a 6-year journey, right? When we first started, I wrote all of my key points out as bullet points. Nick wrote all of his out as paragraphs. There was a young man I was mentoring. We hired him to merge all of our stuff together. So then once he wrote everything out in writing, Nick and I got back together and then we refined all of that content. Took us 3 years to get our first wave of the book completed. So we had gotten the book formatted. The book was ready for print. And I read Dr. Joe Dispenza's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. That was right about the same time as I was embarking upon my year of sobriety journey. And I called Nick and said, hey, buddy, the book's not done. There's a bunch of stuff that we're missing. And at that point, we had the 10 categories of life, but we did not have what is now in our book, which is the 10 fundamentals of self-love, which is part of the first category of life, which is yourself, your core values, and your belief systems. It's all the internal elements of what drives our viewpoints of ourselves and the world around us. So we had a massive point of contention, and we had to have one of our mentors step in and mediate for the two of us. We had ironically just signed a contract for the first time in 3 years of doing business together, about 2 weeks before that had happened. So that was really wild. That held us wildly accountable. And that's a philosophy of mine too in the business world. You don't do business without a contract. And in that moment, I had violated that principle. But that helped us. And then as we navigated through and got back on the same page, we ended up we used AI at the end to help us with some of the editing. That was another major point that we got to. Last year, the book was done again. And I had a really close friend of mine. I shared the book with him, and he came back and had some hypercritical content, or not content, but feedback for us that was not the most positive, and said that we basically took a key point and we hit it, and then we hit it again, and then we hit it about 5 more times, and we overdid it. So there's a process in writing that we were not familiar with, which is contextual editing. Not just grammar, punctuation, the italices, and it's your content and how you're delivering your message in a clear, concise manner. And
you got it, Justin. I try to tell everyone you need 2 different editors. One who does context and development, and the other one who focuses on the grammar. This is so good. Keep going.
So we learned that the hard way. And it took us another year to rewrite everything and to go backwards and fix our mistakes. So we did the best we could. We did bring on some mentors along the way. It would have been nice to have met you prior. So, it's the way that everything worked itself out. But this is part of our philosophy too. Things happen the way that they're going to sometimes. And, we look at the silver linings that are within the challenges, tremendous amount of growth, and wouldn't trade that for the world. So, but maybe there are some things I'd probably redo if we could, just from how, even now I'm redoing the back cover one more time because there was a couple insights. We have another book in our series that's more of a condensed version of our workbook, like an introduction into our system. And there was a key point that was also on our existing back cover, and some of the AI programs I ran it through had harsh things to say, as did a couple mentors. So now I'm like changing all that. So efficiency, having mentors is always something I preach about. Having people that have been there, done that, or have gotten closer than you have, that can help you, that have a heart and a mind of compassion and care and empathy. But I think having a mentor is very important. And there's a lot of things that we didn't know, which tends to be the way that it is when you endeavor upon something completely new.
First time, right? Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. All right. Well, this is really, really helpful. Again, if anyone has any last minute questions before we wrap up, please go ahead and put those in the comments. So that way we can make sure that we have Justin answer them before we take off. And so we've gotten a couple of hellos, and I just want to shout people out. So There was a hello from user, a bunch of different letters, as well as a hello from Penguin and a hello from Franklin Ben. So if you guys have any questions, again, put those in the comments. We'll have Justin answer them. But my kind of wrap up question is getting back to the content of the book. If someone is listening, watching, and right now, and they feel burnt out or maybe even lost, what's the very first step they should take?
Very first step is to get organized, to take a step back, and to, what happens is life can be like a hurricane. And if we get stuck in it, then that's where all the tornadoes are, all the hail, all of the chaos. And to be honest with you, life is very much like a hurricane. There's always going to be chaos and things that we can't control. But where the beauty of the hurricane lies is in the eye of the storm. It's calm in the eye of the storm. And I think that's what it boils down to, is you got to get yourself out of the hurricane or into the eye that is life. So it starts with compartmentalizing, just getting a very clear idea of where it is you stand, and then making an approach from there. But there is nothing wrong with pausing. Sometimes you want to take your foot off the gas, maybe put your foot on the brake, whether or not you're idling, you're coasting, but taking a pause, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not wasted time to take a moment to recalculate and look at your results and restart with a new approach.
I love that. That's so good. Justin, you and I could keep talking. This has been really, really helpful. I found a ton of value in what you had to say. And if you're watching the replay, please go ahead and put your comments and your questions there. We look at all of them. I will make sure they get to Justin so that way he can answer them. This has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Justin. And if you guys want to reach out to Justin personally, he's a real person. He will respond. There's his Instagram, Coach Justin Bullock with 2 L's.
Yep, like
He's also on Facebook, same thing, Coach Justin Bullock. And please go out and get his book. You can find the book at tiltingthebalance.com. That's where you can get all of the strategies, the systems that he talked about to help you guys. If you're feeling burnout, if you're feeling lost, this is definitely a place that can help you through that. So thank you again so much, Justin, for being on with us. I look forward to a part 2 of this conversation.
Yeah, I'm there for it. You let me know when and where. We'll make it happen. And thank you again for having me. For all the viewers, listeners out there, thank you as well. And like she said, I value anybody who comes to me for any form of assistance. So if you have a question, if a comment, some feedback, I welcome it, and I will respond to you. I tend to use Facebook a little more than I do Instagram, but you can contact me through any of those vessels. I will get back with you. And then there's a contact us page on the website as well for the book. And I'll answer you that way too. So
awesome. Thank you again so much.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Well, that concludes today's episode. I look forward to seeing you next week. Same time, same place, but maybe a different guest. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Take care.